So I have installed a Stiebel Eltron heat recovery ventilation system, and that's been a huge game changer. What that's meant is that I'm bringing fresh air in from the outside. I'm taking the moisture from my bathroom and my kitchen, and I'm pulling that out of the building, and I'm recovering the energy from that. So that's working very, very effectively, and I have an automatic boost system. So when I take a shower, it will boost the performance of the fan to double the speed for an hour, and it will automatically remove all the moisture. So I certainly have noticed that a year down the line, living in it in the winter with the ventilation system, it certainly feels a lot warmer because it's everything is dried out over that time.
Welcome to the Smart Living Spaces vlog. I am Sharon, architectural and passive house designer. I'm also a homestay professional located here in New Zealand. It's my mission to make healthy, comfortable, energy efficient and affordable homes for everyday people. So come on a journey with me where I share my knowledge gained over the last couple of decades, because we aren't going to be building better if people don't understand and see the value in changing what we are creating. Hi, I'm Sharon, architectural and passive house designer at Smart Living Spaces. I help people design homes that are comfortable, healthy, energy efficient, warm and dry, and truly fit the way that they live their life. So today, I wanted to talk about the challenges and opportunities around making our existing homes healthier. So I sat down with Simon Cator from Pro Clima to talk about the challenges of his own existing home. Both of us have old homes, so it was great to talk about the improvements he has made and how it has impacted on his experience relative to the improvements that I've made to my own home and how it's impacted on my life. Both Simon and I had the challenge of upgrading an old, outdated home in terms of bathrooms and kitchens, and we both had the very real challenge of budget. I'm really grateful to Simon for his time on this one. So here's my chat with Simon. So hi, I'm sitting down with Simon Cator from Pro Clima, but we're not talking Pro Clima today, Simon.
No.
We're talking about something a little bit more personal. We're talking about your own home. So explain to me a little bit about the house that you have.
Sure. So Sharon, I moved into my house almost 2 years ago, between 1.5 and 2 years ago now. And it's a 1969 brick and tile. And it is... The reason I liked the house was that it's off the ground. It's probably a meter up off the ground, and it's got a lot of windows. So the living space has got windows on the north side, the east side, and the west side. And then it has a beautiful wooden floor, and it's a really nice, airy feeling to it. But obviously it has its limitations as well. Being built in 1969, when they built it, it would have had no insulation in the walls. So we have a single layer of brick with a timber frame and no insulation at all in the walls. They have retrofitted a insulation underneath the floor and also insulation in the ceiling space. So that's done somewhat to stop the heat loss through the ceiling and the floor, but in the walls, we've got nothing at all.
Which is a fairly standard, typical house that most people would have bought today of that vintage, even pre-1979, really, because that's when the insulation standards started to come in. So how big is your house? It's
80 square meters.
80 square meters. So not a large space too. So we see quite significant impacts in terms of performance on the smaller spaces, don't we? So you've done a bit of work to it, because you have an understanding of a bit of passive house and building better and what you need to do. So tell me what you've done to it.
So Sharon, obviously working at Pro Clima and being well aware of the values of air tightness, insulation, ventilation, etc., I would have loved to be able to do a full retrofit from a thermal perspective. Unfortunately, my funds were relatively limited, and I really needed to do a bathroom and a kitchen because those were original 1969. And although they'd lasted well, they'd seen better days. So I was committed to doing that. And unfortunately, that didn't leave much money in the way of trying to do a complete retrofit. which would have required either removing all of the linings and then insulating from the inside, or doing something like an external insulation, which then would have required a complete reclad. So based on that, I decided that it would be a cosmetic renovation. But the one thing that I did really want to do was get a ventilation system. So I have installed a Stiebel Eltron heat recovery ventilation system, and that's been a huge game changer. What that's meant is that I'm bringing fresh air in from the outside. I'm taking the moisture from my bathroom and my kitchen, and I'm pulling that out of the building, and I'm recovering the energy from that. So that's working very, very effectively, and I have an automatic boost system. So when I take a shower, it will boost the performance of the fan to double the speed for an hour, and it will automatically remove all the moisture. So I certainly have noticed that a year down the line, living in a winter with the ventilation system, it certainly feels a lot warmer because it's everything is dried out over that time. So as a winter house, it's really warm because I get a huge amount of solar gain during the day. However, in summer, I have major overheating problems. So originally when I moved in, I was getting up to actually 30 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So especially in the bedroom and the living area where I have west-facing glazing, there's just a huge amount of that afternoon sun coming in and baking. I have installed an external blind to try and cut down on that solar gain, but it's probably brought it down on the hottest days probably to about 27, which is still very warm at sort of 9 o'clock. You know, it's still really, really warm. So that's my major problem, is the overheating side. And I did some measurements with a thermal camera, and the majority of the gain does seem to be coming through the window. So I do think that there's certainly an opportunity to improve the performance of that external shading. I think that what might be happening, because it's just like a shade net. I think that the space between the glazing and the shade net is only probably, 1,200 millimeters. So it's not a very large space. And I think the energy is it's hitting the solar shade and it's heating up that space, and that's still coming through the window because it's single glazing. So yeah, the overheating for me is the major problem at the moment. Yeah.
So just for people who don't understand, who's listening to this, explain how a mechanical heat recovery ventilation unit works, because we're familiar with brands like HRV, etc., but not all things are equal. So explain how that works.
So what happens is we've got two flows of air. So we've got two fans. We've got one fan that is pulling the air out of the wet areas. So that's bathrooms and kitchens. So we're extracting that air. It's going through this box with the two fans. And there's another stream of air, another fan that's sucking air from outside, drawing that in and blowing that into the living spaces, bedrooms, lounges, etc. And what is happening between those two streams of air, we have in this case, I think it's an aluminium heat exchanger, very similar to a radiator that you would have in your car. We've got water going through and cool air going through. So the hot water is going through the stream, and the cool air is basically taking that energy with it. A very similar thing is happening in this system, where the warmer air is going out, cooler air is coming in, and the energy is being transferred over to the air that's coming in, so that I'm replacing my air once every 3 hours, but I'm only losing a tiny fraction of the heat. So for example, it might be extracting, let's say, 16 degree air. The incoming air might be 5 degrees outside, but by the time it's come through the heat exchanger, it'll be maybe 15.6 degrees. So I'm only losing 0.4 of a degree. So it's really effective to give me that ventilation, the drying capability, and also getting rid of the CO2 and things, while at the same time, making sure that I recover that energy.
So you're recycling your heat, but
recycling the heat. That's right.
So that means that you can keep your windows closed
Yes.
the entire year and you're still getting fresh air.
Yes, which is quite important because I live close to quite a busy road and there's quite a lot of traffic noise. So I certainly do like to keep the windows closed. So that's the real benefit, is that I've got that continuous flow of air, removing the CO2, removing the moisture, but at the same time, I'm maintaining that good level of acoustic performance. But I would like to upgrade certainly the windows in the 2 bedrooms at some stage. So I'm seriously considering something like a stock UPVC joinery suite to improve the performance of those 2 windows, which are so crucial for that comfortable, sleeping environment.
Yes, you want fresh air, you want it to be a comfortable temperature, and you want it to be quiet, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned overheating being the challenge, the biggest challenge that you're having. Now, what have you got as windows at the moment?
So at the moment, I've got old timber frame windows, 55-year-old timber frame windows with single pane of glazing. And obviously the seals around the windows are, I've tried to use some rubber seals, or foam seals, but it's quite difficult to get them to seal really nicely. Well. So yeah, they're incredibly air permeable. Air can come in and out, and they don't do a very good job at all of cutting down on the solar gain. So if I went for the Stark system, I would probably look at some type of a low E coating to cut down on that thermal gain, because I don't need so much of the heat gain in winter, but I certainly need to cut out on that solar overheating in the summer. So I would definitely see value in doing that.
So if you can't insulate your walls, the next step for you would be to look at your old windows and replace them with a newer, better, Stark's beautiful and airtight. It's a really good quality product. We've had a couple of conversations about my house, which is a 1940s state house, kind of brick and tile too, so that's a nice comparison. It's also got insulation in the ceiling and the floor, but I don't have a ventilation system. So I have probably internal moisture issues if I'm not being diligent with my windows, but even then, because we can only rely on those windows for adequate ventilation about 10% of the year. But what I do have that you don't is that I ripped off all the wall linings and put insulation in.
Yes.
My windows also are not as open, so I don't have so much glazing, but I don't have so much of an issue of overheating in summer. I have more of an issue of needing to heat it in winter. So it's really interesting how you can make some improvements, but you're still going to have some compensations in other places.
Exactly. And the solar orientation of the building makes such a big difference, doesn't it? Because I'm on an elevated section, or the house is elevated from the section. I've got a huge amount of solar gain through the windows. And yeah, that overheating is just crazy in the summer. But yeah, in the winter, as I say, it's a big benefit. It's nice and warm. I do use a heat pump in the living space at night on some evenings for heating, but the main use of that is in summer for cooling. And eventually I probably will install heat pumps into the bedrooms as well, because that's going to be the only way to, you really want it around sort of 22, 23 degrees.
Well, the World Health Organization says ideally 18 to 22 for our bodies. Yeah. So we've discussed some of the benefits and improvements that you've done, and some of the challenges. You've mentioned the windows as being a future aspiration. So as a homeowner on a budget, what else would you want to do to it? Or what else are you thinking is possible to do to your home to improve its performance?
So one of the things that I have considered is externally insulating the building. So removing the internal linings is definitely doable. Like you've seen, there is a reasonable amount of work involved, and you still have obviously the thermal bridging of the framing. So another option is to put the insulation on the outside. And I have been looking at the Parker wrap system, which effectively means that you wrap the building with a peel and stick building wrap, like the Pro Clima Adhero, and then you put an external insulation, like a rock wool bat on the outside of that. But then, of course, you do need to reclad after that. But the benefit of that is that you've then got a completely airtight construction for your walls, and you've got continuous rigid insulation on the outside, which is meaning that you're cutting down on your thermal bridging, but also you don't have to, worry about all the mess of actually removing the linings. So that is an option, but it's probably a little bit more than what I want to spend at the moment. And that's
so we'll see how we go with energy prices rising, and then Well, I'd love to touch base with you once you've done your windows and the external external insulation, to see actually what tangible benefits it's going to give you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for sharing
It's
your
a pleasure.
experience.
Thank you for the time. It's been really great to catch up.
Yeah, it's been. So just a quick note, insulating external walls does require a building consent, which is the reason that Simon is holding off on that. You really need to be careful with insulating external walls. Otherwise, there's a strong possibility you're going to get a leaky building situation on your hands. The key thing that I noticed after I did the renovation in my own house was that winter in my home was much warmer. It was actually warmer inside my house than outside in winter. Before that, I could actually walk out my front door in the morning and I would literally feel the temperature rise as I stepped outside, because my old home was like a fridge in winter and was an absolute sauna in summer. I can remember sitting on my couch with a hat, scarf, and beanie inside on a winter's night trying to watch TV, and I would often go to bed early, just with an electric blanket, sit on high, just because that's the way I kept warm. It's not a great way to exist. I had a great chat with Benji Simons too from Stark Joinery, and he installed UPVC ambience range into his existing concrete block home. This chat was in June's vlog when we were talking about small smart spaces. I'll put a link for the vlog below, but here's a little snippet about Benji's experience with the upgrades that he did to his own home that he talked about.
Probably a little bit of a personal story there too, in that the house I was living at, that I moved into about that exact same time, start of COVID, around the start of 2020, was 1970s concrete block with no insulation on the outside or the inside of the concrete blocks, and aluminium single glazing from the 70s. And we froze in winter. We had a big fire, and that just didn't do it. And then in summer we absolutely baked. And I didn't know much about building science, building performance, or comfort, or any of these things. But my journey at Stark has been pretty closely mirrored by my journey literally at home, where in the start of 2024 we replaced all of our joinery with our ambience product with low solar gain glass. And through that journey, through the last couple of years, I've learned more about ventilation and also, condensation and humidity and a few of those other things, but it's all kind of come together. And now the home, with the main changes at joinery and the comfort we experience every day, is just amazing. And that's what drives me, I guess, is that I've experienced what bad feels like, and I've experienced what good feels like, and I know that we're doing that for our customers every day, and that's what feels pretty cool, I think.
Simon installed a mechanical heat recovery ventilation unit. Benji upgraded his windows, and I've upgraded the insulation to all the elements, the wall, floor, and ceiling in my home. So whilst we have experienced improvements, it's best to get them all done to work even better together. Now, improving or renovating your home is a fantastic opportunity to improve the health and comfort of your home. It's also an opportunity to make improvements that reduce your power bills. We want warm, dry, affordable homes. There are things to get right with renovating, but also just building new into code doesn't mean that you still won't get stuck with the same old problems that we're experiencing in our existing home. Our building code doesn't address overheating. There is no maximum temperature, so it's legal for a building to reach temperatures of 44 degrees Celsius. It also assumes that opening windows will give you enough ventilation, but that only works for about 10% of the year when it's been tested, and relies on human behavior and climatic conditions. We need the wind to blow. And our insulation standards make some assumptions, particularly around the amount of insulation that is the minimum requirement to go into particularly the walls. We're seeing that actually in reality, new homes are getting fitted with 22% less insulation than what the building code requires. Now, understanding is key. So if you're thinking of renovating your home or building a new one, whether it's work that requires a building consent or not, I would love to have a chat with you to see how I can steer you in the best direction in a way that's great for you. The link to arrange that at a time that works for you is in the description. Now, please don't forget to subscribe or follow me on social media platforms, and I will see you in the next one.